Are you ready?
Let's get it. Here we go.
It's about to go down. Real Talk with Pasha B.
All right. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Real Talk with Pasha B. Excited that you were able to join us for this podcast. This one is going to be a good one. This is Pasha B, and I am joined by no other than Sheneka. Miss Sheneka, how are you, lady?
I am awesome. This fine afternoon, rainy afternoon, at least on my end.
Yes, rainy afternoon.
But I'm good. I'm ready to talk.
All right, now, rainy afternoon here in Atlanta, but we're going to go ahead and get right into this thing. So this podcast is actually influenced by another podcast, Miss Jill Scott's podcast. It is the J.L podcast that has Jill Scott and who else, Sheneka?
She has Asia Danzler. She is the wife of
Kendrick.
Kendrick, the Family Soul. Something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Leigh, I always get her name because it doesn't flow quite right off my tongue. Leia St. Clair. Leia St. Clair, who is a radio personality. And apparently these three ladies are really, really good friends, and they got together and they formed this podcast. I want to say the latter part of 2020.
I think you're right. Just looking at some of the aspects, there are 22 podcasts in, so definitely I think I've listened to a few. Sheneka sent one recently to me, but I listened to one in the past, and I definitely like this podcast. But this particular one that we're doing today is influenced by Miss Jill and her friends, and we're going to be talking about an array of things. One thing is, I'm going to say women owning their shit when it comes to how they interact sexually, right? So I had this conversation with
What you talking about, girl? What you talking about?
I'm just saying, societal norms, they're killing the dreams of women around the world, right? When it comes to just being comfortable who they are sexually. So on this podcast, Jill talked about wanting to own a brothel at some point in her life. And in a nutshell, I think her owning the brothel was just her being able to create experiences for women who want to be, and it's not even, I don't think it's about being free, even though free is a part of a way to describe it when we're talking about societal norms. But I think it's taking ownership and charge of how they want to engage in these sexual interactions. And I think they're called transactional interactions, or sexual relations or sexual interactions kind of outside of the relationship or marriage type of parameter, in which I think grown women should be able to do, right? So me and Sheneka was talking, and I said, and this may sound far-fetched to people, I said, I think people should enter and sign NDAs when dating, right? And my premise to the signing the NDAs and entering into them would be based upon the fact of people are very quick to put business on social media. And I think it's fed by the need to be a part of the social media mechanism, whether that be the good or the bad of the relationship. People want to post. They saturate. They want people to see whether it's a true narrative or a false narrative about their relationships.
Listen, these social media lives folks are living.
These lives.
Some of us know you in real life. We know you in real life. Okay?
And so I think it has afforded people this need, dare I say, even think they have the right to go out there and put your business out there, good, bad, or indifferent. Like the NDA is not just for the bad things, it's for the good things as well. I think it's a contract, or it's an understanding. We want to stray away from the fact that relationships are contractual. I don't care what kind of relationships they are. I don't care if you don't want to think about them as contractual. They are
transactional or
contractual. And it may not be a written contract, right? But when, you get into a relationship with someone and y'all start to go steady, and that person asks,
we go steady.
We're going to go steady. Mm-hmm. When you come into that contractual discussion or obligation where you decide to become monogamous, whether that's one aspect of it all, that's not only. I think when you have a understanding, that's what I'm talking about, the contract, and everybody's on the same page, and they are operating amongst the guys or in between the parameters of what you have agreed upon, that then becomes a contract. And so with that being said,
gotcha.
Sometimes people don't want to stick with the rules and regulations of the contract.
Pasha, let me offer this up. Maybe we have a whole lot of assumptions going on.
Yes.
And people don't necessarily know all the terms of the contract.
I agree.
Because I think that happens a lot. People just kind of go with the flow. I don't think people ask too many questions because they may get an answer that they don't like. And then they have to do something about it.
Have to be accountable and be responsible.
Therefore, they can claim ignorance and just not ask the question and go with the flow.
But what about those people who you thought that you were in this contractual relationship with, and then when it's over with, they don't realize that contract is supposed to last outside of the relationship, and they kind of they take it to the streets. I'll say that. Some people like to just live a personal.
How does that look? Pasha? Are you talking about an ex posting pictures of us in provocative situations?
It could be that. It could be just information or things that have happened during the relationship that just shouldn't be shared with other people. It could be the fact of, let's say, me and my friend got into an argument or whatever, and you decide to take that outside of the relationship and just make it to be something more than what it is. Like, certain things just need to be in-house business, not out of the house business. I decide, or someone decides to break up with someone, and let's say it's purely mutual, because some of these interactions, everybody has a right to tell their story. So if you do some dog shit to someone and they decide to go and tell people about it, probably, that's the luck of the draw with that. You just can't do shit to people and expect for them to act rationally. So if someone gets cheated on and they decide to go tell people that you cheated on them, it is what it is, right? But let's say a man wears a toupee, okay? Or what we call nowadays, what is it called? A unit. A male unit?
I can't.
A male unit.
A unit.
After you break up with that person, should you be allowed to just go and tell people that they're wearing a unit if that's not something that they wanted? If they told you that within the guise of the relationship and that was supposed to be something kept within a relationship, is it okay for you to share that information once the relationship has been terminated?
You know what? I'm going to say this.
She about to be petty.
I'm thinking that information probably has already been shared.
And if it's been shared, that's fine.
As soon as she found out about it.
Wow.
Not after the relationship is terminated.
Wow. And that's a possibility.
Like Pasha girl.
But then,
there's a unit.
But I think they are selective with who they share it with, and it's not used as ammunition. I think after the breakup is kind of used as ammunition. So because relationships are contractual and transactional, and this is something that they talked about on the podcast, why aren't we viewing relationships as thus? And, maybe we need to enter into NDAs and in marriages, looking at prenuptial agreements more in regards to aligning with that transactional piece of the relationship. How do you feel about prenups first?
So I'm okay with the prenup. I really am. I think historically that's something that we grew up thinking that was solely for the benefit of people in a certain socioeconomic group.
Rich folks.
And rich folk. And not necessarily something that, the middle class. I think when you look at some wealthy people, and I'm just going to use who was the most recent? I think Halle Berry and the Mary J. Bliges and the Jill Scotts of the world, who ended up paying their exes, whether it's alimony, child support, what have you. I think that may have the middle class folk, raising an eyebrow, like, I may not have millions, but these thousands count for something. And, I want all my money. I don't necessarily want to lose what I've established for myself.
And I think it's become even more universal just with the way that history or time has caught up to us now. So the value of what was in a marriage probably, century ago or whenever prenuptial agreements actually became more relevant, because money was at the focus of the prenup in regards to assets and who came in with those assets, and it was usually a male, right? And so in order for the person to ensure that they secured those assets, the money component was something that needed to be held on to and in line with traditional times at that point. Well, here we are in 2020. An asset could be something so varying, first and foremost. Also, the fact that you have transitional roles that people are playing. So women are out there making as much money as men. So it's not only maybe from the male perspective of possibly holding on to their assets, but women as well want to hold on to their asset. Looking at the numbers, the data in regards to successful relationships, marriages at this point in time, it's like playing Russian roulette. I'm not even sure what the numbers are. Is it well over 50% at this point in time? The divorce rate in 2021, Sheneka, you usually have the numbers.
Even if it's 50-50, I don't think I like those odds.
Those odds are not on anybody's sides or in anybody's favor that the relationship is going to be successful, especially past a certain point in time, because now it is more customary that, I hate to use that word customary, but divorces are happening, and they're happening in shorter periods of time than they are in longer periods of time. People are not getting together for 20 years and now they're deciding that it no longer works and they're going to get a divorce. Some people are finding out in a short period of time that the relationship isn't going to work. So they're deciding to dissolve at that point. And so the shorter period of time that you're in something, does that then correlate to the person being able to reap a full benefit of your assets? I just think that people are looking at things traditionally in 2021 differently than what they were years ago. But with that being said, I'm in agreement with the prenup as well. What's the harm of the prenup, first and foremost? And I think that the prenup can be catered or it can be drawn up so that it's not necessarily a winner and a loser in the situation. Everybody, and I think that's something as well, people look at a prenuptial agreement with a negative thought because it's usually a winner and a loser in the situation. Somebody's winning and someone's losing. Well, I think a prenup can be drawn up so that everybody's winning in the situation. So it is a mutual agreement upon two people that is just then drawn up contractually and based upon how the relationship evolves and or terminates, this is what everybody is expected to walk away with. And I think it even creates an even swap, no swindle type situation. So I'm in alignment.
I agree. And another thing to take into consideration, I think a lot of people, especially in our age range, they're on their second or third marriage. And, you know, they have children from previous relationships. And I think a lot of people want to protect that which they have already with their, I don't want to say established family, but with their children. Because when you bring in the blended other families. Party, the blended families and things of that nature, I think that makes it doubly important for you to protect your assets, to make sure that those people that you want to have access to what you have that. And it's not, you don't bring in some that can take it away. So, and I also want to add, before we swing it back around, I've heard a lot of conversation and dialogue amongst men about this as to reasons why they're not getting married, because they feel like they don't benefit financially from it.
Right.
Yes. When you throw in that 50-50, it's like I have a 50 chance of losing everything that I've worked really, really hard for. Nah, I think I'll pass on that. So that's a conversation that's happening as well. There's a term that they use to describe these men, and I can't even think of it off the top of my head, but yeah, so we need to be mindful of that. I want to swing it back around to the brothel, Pasha.
I know you wanted to get to the brothel.
No. I just want to, you know, give a little bit more background for those who haven't heard the podcast. When I heard the podcast, Pasha immediately came to my mind because look, Madam Pasha over here, he's about that life. But one of the things that Jill Scott mentioned was creating these experiences for women. You know, men, you all go out, and I think it's more socially accepted for you all to go to a strip club, or, you know, even have escorts and things of that nature. And she's talking about truly creating an experience, and however that looks for you. So if you like the guys with, you know, the hip hop look and the Timbs, there's a guy for you. If you like guys suited and booted and, you know, the gentlemanly like experience, that's an experience for you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual, right? If you just want to have a nice dinner, sit down and talk, if you want to get your back blown out, or you just want something really, really a sensual sexual experience, that's something that will be created for you. And without the stigma attached. So, because let's be real, there are a lot of single people, and I'm going to say men and women out here, who aren't necessarily having those experiences. And I think it may cut down on some of the negativity we have in the world.
Yeah. Well, society,
people can let that energy out, you know, folks holding on and it's building up.
Well, society paints the negative picture of people curating those experiences, right? It's supposed to be, you're only supposed to have those types of experiences if you're in a relationship or you're married and things of that nature. You're only supposed to have those experiences with someone that you consider that you love. And I think society...
And honestly, Pasha, people are doing it every day, though.
They are.
Right?
They are.
Still doing it.
They are. And society has made it more acceptable, air quotes acceptable, for men to curate those experiences for themselves, because you just gave a whole bunch of examples. And women kind of sit on the sidelines because they're supposed to be in love with the person that they're having sexual interactions with. It's interaction, right? What I do believe is, though, that everybody, of course, needs to be consenting, and they need to be in agreement with the interaction. But do you need to be in love? Do you have to be in love? Why? Why women got to be in love all the fucking time? Why? I'm in agreement with
and it's so. I didn't think about it until you, as you're saying it, Pasha. It's always the women who have to be in love.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't hear these conversations about, men, you need to save this experience for the woman you're in love with. It's always the women who are getting the short end of the stick.
And so these experiences that she's talking about creating, it's definitely something that kind of raised an eyebrow. I had this thought years ago in regards to why is it that mentally and so to have relationships or interactions with the opposite sex, no matter male or female, I think that's healthy, stems from two healthy people going into a consenting interaction, communicating, being in agreement, and understanding this is what it is, right? Mentally well people, that's what I'm going to say. I think when you get someone who's or someone who's not coming from a manipulative standpoint, if everybody's on the up and up, it is what it is. I think we get into these situations where people do what they want to do to get what they want to get from somebody, which tarnishes the ability for, I think, more people to go into these mutually agreed upon experiences with each other. So we could talk about the brothels on the podcast, Jill's podcast. They talked about the bunny ranch. They talked about all this stuff where we knew men went to have these experiences, maybe even brought the damn son who was turning 18 to have his first sexual experience, right? So with that being...
That was an episode.
And so with that being said...
Along with, and I'm going to throw this out here too. Let me just add this, Pasha. Along with, and I saw this episode of people who may have...
don't say disabilities.
How can I phrase it? Like, no, I'm trying to look for a different term, but who have different abilities. I think that's the phrase they're using now.
Okay.
So, people have these varying challenges, and they may not be in situations where they are, where they can curate these experiences themselves. But it's an experience that they're curious about. And especially when you talk about these incels out there in these streets, but that's another topic.
And no, now that I think about it, I think it was a Vice video that kind of talked about creating these. There was a company that created experience for people who, like you said, had different abilities. Where, let's say, there was a physical handicap that they weren't able to, whether that be go out and date, air quotes, like normal people date, or have sexual experiences like normal people. You said normal. And I brought it back because it's not about normal. It's about having sexual experiences like so many other people have. I will say that they curate this experience so that if you're a 30-something year old, let's say, who's never had a sexual experience because of whatever reason, it's done in a way in which you're able to have that in a healthy environment. I thought that was cool as well. But the creating the experiences with somebody. So if you are a mentally healthy person, and I'm always going to say this about mental health, and you know exactly what it is that you want, you know how you want it, you know what you want it to look like, and we're going to then put female, right? Why are you not able to go out and have this experience if that also means it being a transactional service? Why not?
And you don't have to fly all the way to Aruba or Jamaica to do it. So
the shade. But
you can save your coin. You know.
Why is that not acceptable? Why is it that if I decided to have go out to dinner with somebody, right? There's an app for everything. So why is it not that there is and there probably has, because that's something they talked about jokingly on the podcast. I think it was either one of the two hosts asked Jill, you're in the industry, you're telling me that these services aren't available for people who have money, like Hollywood. And Jill's kind of like, well, I don't know, because I don't be hanging around people like that. But I think if it is available, because this is not new. Sex is not new. The sex industry is not new. I think it should become more accessible or more acceptable towards the average Joe. I am 100% in agreement with that. And I think I may even want to be a silent partner. How about
Madam Pasha? Madam Pasha. But I think a lot of what contributes to that is like how we're conditioned, and we spoke about that in the last podcast. Women are conditioned a certain way to think sex is dirty, to think you have to be in a relationship, to think that has to be under the auspices of a marriage. In this day and age, look, people aren't getting married if they're getting married until they're like their 30s and 40s. In the meantime, in between time, not to mention, I think this whole patriarchal, Judeo-Christian society we live in definitely reinforces that narrative as well. And there are people who are so conflicted. Like, I've seen the internal anguish people have because they're battling what they want versus what they have been told is proper. And I'm not telling you to go out here and, do whatever, but I just believe in creating the life you want to live.
Absolutely.
Right? So however that looks, you need to create the life you want to live. We're only here for a short period of time. And look, if you want to be enslaved to these societal norms or what other people say you should do and should not do and how it should look, that's on you. But you can't blame anybody but yourself. Live your life.
Live your
life.
Live your best life. Live your best life as best as you can. And I'm glad that you brought that up in regards to, all of these thoughts. Even when we use the word social norms, societal norms, somebody came up with this shit, right? And who's this?
Yes.
And who was that somebody?
More than likely, who was that somebody?
Who is that somebody?
You fill in the blank.
And just because it was okay 400 years ago doesn't mean that that's applicable now. And so I think that's certain things that people need to look at. Are these things in line with your beliefs and your morals and your values and creating that life for you? So I'm all here for the NDA, which allows for you to move through relationships, hopefully with some type of understanding, contractual understanding. I'm all for the pre-nuptial agreement that should roll over into a marriage. And again, I look at these as win-wins. I don't look at these as win-loser type of situations, and creating these experiences as we always talk about, life is an experience, and we're not creating enough of them in regards to sexual interactions or sexual transactions. And we're looking at it as a transaction from a negative perspective, which it's not. On the podcast as well, they talked about, usually in relationships, everything about, and I'm not say everything because y'all take that fucking phrase too literal. literally, but there is a lot of, well, if I do this, then I expect my spouse to do that, or if my spouse does this, then the expectation is I'm going to do that, and that's transactional. I don't it just is what it is. You want a new kitchen, you may be dealing with that type of person, that type of mate, that in order to get your spouse to do certain things. So we're going to talk about a male-female dynamic. As a wife, you may know that your husband, he is, what is the word that I'm looking for? You get what you want from him when you do X, Y, and Z, right? So if your husband is a sexual being and you know that if you do X, Y, and Z, that puts him in a more giving mood, right?
What's XYZ, girl?
X and a Y and a Z, right? Then you know that that's, I don't even want to say the love language, but that's the language that you and your spouse speaks. So with that being said, you'll do X, Y, and Z to get 1, 2, and 3. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think if we were just to have the conversation talking about marriage, well, if your husband expects for you to, let's say, cook and clean and take care of the kids, and in reciprocity of that, what he's going to do is be a provider, a protector, and make sure that everything is sound outside of the house, and you make sure everything is sound within the house. I think that's transactional. So you do those things in order to get those things. I don't know why we look at sex as something other than all of what it is. All of, because it's not black and white. It's not, oh, you have sex with someone that you love. Sex is about having an experience with someone that you want to have an experience with.
Can I? And I may be going a little left with this as well.
Go ahead. Go left. Hard left.
You know, I'll be all over the place. You know, when I look at the world, Pasha, and this whole process of nature, I consider us to be a part of the process, right? I don't see us as separate from. So we can look at the birds and the bees and the dolphins and the whales and every other creature on this earth being free to engage in, you know,
in the birds and the bees.
The birds and the bees and sexual experiences, and everybody isn't doing it for what you call that thing when you reproduction. I'm not even drinking. Yeah, everybody isn't doing it to reproduce. Every creature isn't doing it to reproduce. And we as human beings separate ourselves from that. It's like, oh, we are a superior species. We are a thinking species. And I don't necessarily think that other species are not thinking species and conscious species and beings and things of that nature. When we separate ourselves and then you throw in all of these other mores and customs and things like that, again, you adding to this anguish.
You're making it more complex. You're making it complex.
You're making it more complex than what it needs to be.
And can I just say something ignorant?
Go ahead.
If it was just for reproductive purposes, God wouldn't have made it feel good.
You ignorant.
I'm ignorant as hell. But hey, like, come on now, like, why
you made it feel so good?
Damn, so good. And not only from the feel, let's talk about the biological,
those endorphins.
Thank you. Let's talk about it.
What's that word? Oxy something.
The serotonins and all of that stuff that's released. Hey, let's just talk about what it is.
All of that.
From this act, there is a physiological reaction that happens. And I ain't seen no survey, no study, no test that said that any of those effects were negative. Like, what the hell? Why are we living halfway? Why are we living halfway? Because somebody said this is the way that we should do it. I'm here for the experience.
And to bring it back around to society, most of these are being placed on women.
By men.
Right? Historically, traditionally, you know, one thing may have been said, but men have been operating in this way for a very long time. Very long time. Women are the ones who've been told to keep those knees together. No, you're not allowed to feel that.
You're not allowed to enjoy sex. That's the bottom line.
You're not allowed to enjoy sex. Yes.
And we have allowed for that perception to go from generation to generation. And I think it needs to stop. I think it needs to stop. People then become confused. And I'm not even talking about, I'm going to omit the thought around sexual orientation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about they become confused because they don't know what and how this experience is supposed to happen. So you have the young men out there who learn sexual experiences from watching porn, right? You have the women out there who's possibly learning sexual experiences from older men preying on them.
That's a whole nother podcast, Pasha. We're not delving into that.
We're not going to delve into it, but I just want, stifling, or the better word is not acknowledging that sex is supposed to be a experience, a pleasant experience. We then create cause and effect. We create additional baggage and trauma and things of that nature that we as older people are dealing with when we interact with these people, with other people. And then we continue with the.
And I want to say, in addition to even men their own age, so you may even have people who are in the same age range, and I'm going to say little girls or teenagers who they don't know that they're supposed to enjoy, like that they can enjoy. They think that they are just a commodity to be consumed,
or a vessel.
And yes, of consumption. And I see and hear men talk about, women not being active participants. And I think for women, the age in which they start becoming active participants is a little further out than when they actually start engaging in intercourse. Now, I don't know how that conversation or how that looks.
What do you mean? From a youth to speaking to young people about it, or
yes.
What do you mean?
Yes.
So we did something last year where we had like an intimate discussion with a group of people where we brought up a topic, and it just related to interacting with younger people and teenagers, older teenagers, in regards to sex. And so I don't know how that conversation looks as well. I'm definitely not going to be a subject matter expert in regards to how that should happen. But I think the one thing that we can do as adults is understand that young people are sexual beings, right?
Look, a ball of hormones raging.
And so with anything that's a ball of energy or a ball of something, it has to be, and control is not the word, but it has to be guided, or it has to be manipulated or handled in a certain way so that it doesn't become a casualty. It doesn't become an explosion. It doesn't become something that it shouldn't be. Like it can be channeled and targeted so that it becomes something that's healthy. And I think as parents or
even understood, right?
Or understood.
Even understood.
Yeah. So
because do they understand what's going on biologically?
And so that's a two-part thing. So looking at the youth as them not understanding, but also as the adult taking all those stigmas that may have been put on us as a younger person, understanding that those don't apply. Like we were sold a sack of shit, right? And that's not what translates to now. We just talked about women not understanding that sex should be enjoyable until later on in life, and then dudes thinking that these women are trash in the bed because they don't do X, Y, and Z, or yada yada yada. Yeah. So if you understand now that you're supposed to enjoy, whether that be male or female, translating that or understanding that these little people, and when I say little, I'm not talking about 4 or 5 year olds. We're talking about of teenagers, older teenagers, that they are experiencing things that we may not have or may have and need to be guided in a certain manner. So it's not one of those do as I'm telling you to do, not what I'm doing. It is understanding that they have been, they need to be guided, and adults need to be the people to guide them. I think we're so quick to dismiss the sexual component when it comes to younger people. Oh, you're not supposed to be thinking about that. Okay, maybe they're not supposed to be thinking about it, but you know what? They are, right? So now what you gonna do, boss? How are you gonna handle the situation? And handling the situation is not ignoring it. It's not. I think it's coming up with a plan to be as comfortable as you are in having a conversation or defining where it is and how much you're going to talk about with your kid, right? But you need to have the conversation. And that is whether you got a father talking to a daughter or you have a father talking to a son. Yes, the conversations may be a tad bit different, but as a male, you need to have the conversation with your daughter. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be doing that, but you out here high-fiving your son when he got a little girl upstairs. No. The conversation may be different, but it should be about understanding the two people and the roles that they play in the universe when it comes to sex. That's all. And one thing to do is not think that your daughter is a sexual being. It's just not. That's not gonna work. Sorry guys, it's not gonna work. But yeah,
I'm sitting up here thinking about how even as an older person, and I'm gonna say, let's say 21 to 25, and this may be kind of crazy, and maybe some of the parents, I don't know, think about it. Like, how do you teach that? I mean, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate? I shouldn't even say appropriate. What are your boundaries? What are your boundaries? Which would require, I think, some exploration when you're dealing with what's supposed to happen. And I'm thinking, I'm going to reference Bridgerton. Mm-hmm. I know you didn't watch that, Pastor, but there are plenty of people who watched it.
Don't try me.
Listen. You did? You watched it? Mm-hmm. Oh, you did? Oh, did. Okay. So the fact that the girl got married and didn't know what to do
at all.
Like what's supposed to happen here? So
she got married and thought that him pulling out was normal. Or or that the act of pulling out was somehow necessary.
Yeah.
Or she didn't know what the hell was supposed to happen regardless. Forget about what was going on with it. She didn't know.
So what happens when you have a 21, 22, whatever year old, and they're in a relationship? And what you said is a lot of guys learn about sex watching porn, mm-hmm. right? So now these two beings connect. Mm-hmm. How does that look, and what's that experience like for her, even in determining what her boundaries are? Now, I think it may be a little different nowadays because I think all of these kids, men and women, whatever, are walking around with porn on their phone. Mm-hmm. But even with that,
or sharing some type of sexual content.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So even with that, I think a lot of that content is skewed in one direction
heavily,
and not necessarily knowing like there's a moderate version of that, or there's a lesser version of that, and you don't have to bust it wide open and do backflips and all of this other stuff. Like, I think that's another disconnect that we have, in that the expectation. You want me to do what? You want me to do that?
Can we
look, I'm going to need you to sign an NDA for me to do that.
Thank you. And the fact that porn is entertainment, right? So that is not.
No, it is an instructional guide.
No, Pasha. It is not. And the fact that I don't know of any of them, and I'm not an expert in this subject either, but because it's entertainment, this is small clips being put together over a period of time. Now,
it's a production.
It's a whole production. So with that being said, and some of y'all are gonna be like, nah, because whatever got these 5-minute clips. It is. Follow my lead when I'm talking about this. It's entertainment. It's made for entertainment purposes, and it's not entertainment. It's made to teach. It's not an instructional video. But it is. That's usually little people, and when I say little people, I'm talking about younger generation, and we're going to even talk about 20s or teenagers. This is what they use to get introduced to sex because that's all that they have. Now, I am not telling any parent to sit down and have this whole elaborate conversation with their children in regards to how their first sexual interaction is supposed to happen, giving instructional or step-by-step tips on what you're supposed to do. I'm not telling anybody to do that, even though I do know there are some parents who are very, very liberal, and they are doing that, you know? And if they want to take that role in their child's sexual life, have at it. I don't think that we need to sell children bags of shit, though. Just don't do it. And if you can't do anything else, don't do that. And that becomes that you be an active and engaging parent and having crucial conversations with your kids that you may be uncomfortable having. That may be that you sit back and analyze and understand your sexual history, right? And analyze what you liked and what you didn't like and what you would have hoped someone told you and what they didn't tell you and what you learned, and kind of feeding that back to younger people. But, you know, getting back on topic in regards to us older people, because that's what we talking about. Little kids shouldn't be hunching anyway. No, I'm just playing. But getting back to us, you know, it's you made a very valid point in regards to there are segments of people, whether that be because of religion or traditional roles or just gender roles, that they are having experiences later in life that they should have had earlier in life, and that's just because it's okay for either them to be non-sexual beings. They're viewed, whether that be in their own culture or in society, as being viewed as non-sexual beings. And when it comes to women, I'm just not subscribing to that. And I'm here for you creating your own sexual experience. Bottom line.
Coming in 2024, Pasha's Bunny Ranch.
It doesn't even have to be like...
No, we're not going to call it the Bunny Ranch. What can we call it? I don't want to use stud in the title. I don't like that.
Why can't we just call it the experience?
The experience?
Mm-hmm.
I can dig it.
Coming in here to get your experience. That's all.
I can dig it.
Uh-huh. And I don't think that we should be required to go outside of our country, you know, to be more in charge of us.
No girls trip.
We always do a girls time. I'm only down for that shit. But what I'm saying is we need to,
they said it doesn't count if it happens in another country.
It doesn't. We put that over there. We put that over there on the other side. But why are we not feeling more comfortable in the United States having these experiences? I'm here for it. We're going to figure out how we're going to do that. We're going to figure out how we're going to make that message more accessible to women without it being looked at negatively. I don't know how we make that palatable for our male counterparts. I think that it should be looked at as a positive thing. And I'm talking about grown people. I'm not talking about, you know, we put the kid stuff to the side. We're talking about grown people. Women are quick to be judged because they want to take control of certain things. And most of the time, anything is negatively put on women, it's done by men.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Most of the time, not all of the time, most of the time. It's all about control. It goes back to control for me. But you want to say something. Come on, give me your contradicting.
No,
opinion.
I'm thinking. I do believe that ultimately men have created this narrative, but I do think other women have grabbed a hold of it.
They have subscribed to it.
Well.
Absolutely. And so that's where it's been created and it hasn't been challenged by a lot. And because the masses have subscribed to it, this is why we're having this problem. So let's create a new subscription. Let's create a new way of, and it's not even a new way of thinking, because again, who's to say what we've been doing before was the right way? There's options. Everybody has an option. You do as you do. You do what you want to do. But I do know that there are a lot of people, a lot of women who want to take more control of their lives. And sometimes it's easier said than done because we're dealing in this bubble of, well, society says this, or I don't know anybody else who's doing it any other way. So I may be a little bit nervous to address it in this manner. And I don't think that you have to. I think sex rocks.
And it feel good.
And it just feel good. So yeah, I'm all here. I'm here for the NDA. I'm here for the pre-nuptial. I'm here for the experiences. And I think that if you want to subscribe to that, then subscribe to that. And don't let society tell you that you should not.
Yeah. And bring along your NDA form just in case.
I'm serious. I'm gonna look into formalizing an NDA product that people can be using. When you out here in these streets doing what you got to do, because y'all do too much. Y'all out here, you're quick to say something. You're quick to tell somebody something. You're quick to put something on social media. And maybe it will change the climate, right? So if you're required to sign an NDA, I think you may weed out some people who you don't possibly want to have interactions with, because if they're not willing to sign the form, then maybe it could be an ulterior motive that they're in the situation for. Or if they're not willing to sign the form, then this may be somebody who you just don't need to have an interaction, need to have an interaction with, because they should be looking at your interaction with them as private as you're looking at it with them, right? And
they're going to sign the form, Pasha. What? I'm sitting here with all of this.
Well, do you think the form should be filled out prior to clothes dropping, or before? I think it should be filled out before.
Like how much time before?
I think it should be filled out over coffee.
Over coffee?
I'm joshing. I do this is one of the things, and we've talked about this as well. We don't communicate with people who we're going to be in relationships or interactions with until it's time, right? And then it becomes weird. So
in the heat of the moment.
So then you either think it's weird
are flowing, things are stepping hard.
And that's when you're going to get yourself caught out. You're going to get yourself caught out because now you're in it. Have the conversation prior to, right? You should have the conversation about what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, what it is that you're willing to try, what's your boundary. Prior to, and I'm not understanding how that's not viewed as a way, for lack of a better word, the conversation should be a turn on as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, while you're getting to know this person and you're trying to see if you vibe with them and whatever, I think those conversations and the answers to those questions should ultimately propel you to either if you're going to go further down the line or if you're not. And if you decide to go further down the line, then that should be the getting to know you and the turn on as well to that person. So you want to be butt naked and get with somebody to know or realize that they into some shit that you're not into, then what happens then? And you know what happens then with most women? They do it. They get themselves into situations where they don't know how to, and this has nothing to do with non-consensual sex. This just has to do with being put in a sexual experience that if you had an opportunity to think about if you wanted to do it and it be in a place, and I don't want to use buzzwords. I don't want to use safe space. I don't want to say any of that. What I want to say is if you had the opportunity to think about it outside of being in that environment, you would probably or may have more control or say, nah, that's not something that I'm into, instead of being in the middle of a situation and feeling like, oh, well, you're this far along. You just gonna go with the flow. That's what I'm gonna say. So I definitely don't want to put any buzzwords in regards to doing something that you don't want to do, because no is no. Bottom line, if you don't want to do something you don't want, and I don't care if you're engaged, fully engaged, the tip is in. I don't care, right? You have the opportunity, or it's all the way in.
I only agree to the tip.
Right.
You're going further.
No is no, meaning from a male perspective or a female perspective, we're not playing those games. But I think that if you understood what it is that the person liked or didn't like, it could be something as simple as the person want you to lick on them. I don't want to lick on your salty ass, right? There's nothing about your salty back that I want to lick on, right? Nothing. It does nothing for me.
Look, I just saw a post about that, whether or not it was a deal breaker. And all of these people are posting, yay and nay and whatever. And for some people, it was a deal breaker. Look, if fellatio or cunnilingus is a deal breaker for you, that definitely needs to be discussed
before,
not in the heat of the moment. Because people were serious about that. Serious. And I had to throw in a little extra of something to consider, because we've spoke about this as well. I think when it comes to, and look, I don't need you licking on me.
She said, look, 50 times.
We've had that conversation before. But you have to understand again where people are coming from. Mm-hmm. So what I added to the conversation was some women prefer it or require it because they don't necessarily get fulfilled through penetration. Mm-hmm. That way, they get that fulfillment. And then men, some of them don't have the stamina, so they gonna lick on you for 30 minutes to compensate for the fact they only have 5 on the back end, and 2 at that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to kind of understand where people are coming from, not just, hey, I don't like this, or I need this, or I want that. Have the conversation, because I would hate for you to be in a full-blown relationship and break up because of something that someone does or does not do. And that could have easily been avoided.
That you never gave them feedback on, ever.
Yeah.
You just assumed. You assumed that he was going to do X, Y, and Z, or you assumed she was going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and you never told him that you either wanted it done or you didn't want it done. Happens all the time. I don't know why sex is one of the most taboo subjects still in 2021. Especially, I kind of see how it's taboo if you don't want to have these conversations out in public, or you don't want to have them with people who you are not engaging with non-engaging people, right? With the people that you engage with, I'm sorry, y'all need to woman and man up and have these conversations. You should. Mm-hmm. You should. And you should have them prior to. We have moved away from, and I'm not even sure if we had it, so let me not say that. We need to mentally stimulate each other more than we do just from a physical perspective, and that mental stimulation should be done by conversation, and it should be done by communication on every level, not just sexual. If you messing with someone who can't put a sentence together, that's your problem. And if you like it, right?
Mm-hmm. Because for some people, that's not a deal breaker.
For some people, that's not a deal breaker. If that is a deal breaker for you, then you need to have a conversation. If someone doing X, Y, and Z to you, as Sheneka said earlier, then you need to have that conversation. And there's no reason to waste anybody's time. You know, when you think you about to get it and you don't get it, you just get it, right? Hey, who's responsible for that? Is it that the other party is responsible for that because you're not satisfied, or is it you're not responsible because you didn't speak up?
That part.
And one thing, it's you know, depending on the transactional or the contractual agreement that you came in with the person, is it that I'm supposed to be satisfied and I get satisfied by whatever? You're supposed to be satisfied and you get satisfied by whatever, or is it that we satisfy each other?
We're supposed to be satisfying one another. And
you can't, it ain't no I and we. So I'm not sure, but I'm all here for the experience. I'm gonna try to manifest this in the next few years.
Please.
You know, it's gonna
manifesting, honey.
But you know what, Sheneka, it's gonna have to be a secret society, because I'm gonna tell you about these everybody ain't invited. I don't think that everybody's mentally capable to understand how and where you need to be in order to fully enjoy the fact that you can create an experience for yourself like this. So no, everybody can't come. Everybody can't come.
And I have some ideas of how we can do this, Pasha. Notice I threw that we in here.
I did, because you know what? Because there's an app for that.
Look, there is an app for that, and I'm just thinking, I don't want to put it out there on the airways. Somebody else might.
Please don't, because this.
So we'll talk offline.
We'll talk offline. But you know, I think that, but in regards to what we're talking about, these experiences can be manifested by individual people. Live your life. Live your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that means living your life from the rooter to the tutor. Live your life.
To the tutor?
To the tutor. Live your life. Like, come on. And life is short.
Yes.
Don't sell yourself short.
I'm for it. I am for it.
Don't sell yourself short. Self short in this life. It's we're gonna put this podcast out really, really soon. So I think a lot of us are, you know, death is a reoccurring thing right now, and it's always been reoccurring, but I think it's being even more magnified based upon COVID. So just live your life. 100%. Live it safe when it needs to be lived safe, but live your life. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you just got to do what you
define it first. Sit down and have a conversation with yourself and define how you want your life to be, without all the stigma that society places on you. So if you had to create this world, what is it, or how do you want that to look for you? And then go ahead and manifest that shit.
That's an excellent point, because we don't do that. Accountability and responsibility. Hey, if you don't do anything else going forward, be intentional, be purposeful, be accountable for your shit, be responsible for your shit. And I guaranteed if more people did that, we'll be in a better place. But yeah, and then manifest it. Fucking manifest it. Sheneka, that was a good one. Manifest it. Because it's not anybody else's responsibility to do that.
Yes.
I think we're at the end.
Look, I'm ready. I'm ready for an experience.
You know what, Sheneka? We're going to define an experience for us in 2021. So we're going to define it. We're going to manifest it, right? And then we're going to put a business plan behind creating experiences for other like-minded women. I think we could do that. Now. You know, we grown. We good and grown. Good and grown, God damn it.
Good and grown.
So,
I'm excited.
Me too. So thank you guys for tuning into this episode. And as always, until next time.
Peace.
Peace.
This is Real Talk with Pasha B.